Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U. My name is Dove, and my friend Keith is here to bring me up to speed on everything I don't know about soccer and Arsenal. This week featured a Premier League match at home against Brighton. Hello, Keith. Should I even bother asking how you're doing?
Well, I have to say, we had graduation last weekend, which means it is summer for me, so I don't
Okay.
care about anything anymore.
You're on the
I'm
beach.
just, I'm just free. I am quite literally. Well, I'm not literally on a beach. If YouTube works, you'll see I'm not on a beach, but I'm not at work. That's the important thing. Um, and yeah. Oh wait, did we play a game this weekend? I don't remember. I just completely lost my mind.
Funny how it works that way.
Yes, yes,
Oh, we
yes.
got some other stuff to attend to before we have to dig those memories back up.
Which we
Uh,
should. That's just it's the moments where you suffer that makes the moments of success so much sweeter.
Yep. Yeah. So first of all, for any of you who went looking on YouTube for a link to the video, I apologize for your wasted effort. We had technical problems that resulted in there not being a video. We will try again this week, but no promises. I will tweet a link to it. If and when it gets posted, so that'll be an easy way to know if you're missing it or not. Just go to our new Twitter account at GoonerU Show, so that will point you there. Meanwhile, in Geordie land, we talked about Geordies a little bit and the Geordie accent and well-known Geordies. I've got some follow-up in that department. I found a fun little YouTube video that explains how you would say different things with the Geordie accent with a delightful woman who was very funny in her reads. And sure enough, the very first word of this video is Hawaii, which I looked up. It is not in Merriam-Webster or any official dictionary. It is in Wiktionary and Urban Dictionary and other unofficial dictionaries. It does not seem like it actually approximates any any word known to any other language or other dialect of English. It is just a Geordieism. And for those of you wondering what a Geordie sounds like without watching that video, I did find a page that has a fairly exhaustive list of well-known Geordies, many of whom I'd never heard of, but I dug out the names that you may have heard of. So in roughly in descending order of likelihood that I think you've heard of these people: Sting, the lead singer of the Police, and also Keith and I were talking before we recorded. I'm pretty sure he was in the Dune movie from the 80s that David Lynch directed. Eric Idle from Monty Python. He is probably a close second or maybe even a tie or surpassing Sting as far as knowing who he is. He's one of the Pythons. Rowan Atkinson, who you would know as Mr. Bean. I can picture him. I can't really hear him in my head. I think Eric Idle is probably the one who I'd hear the most. As far as whose voice I can also hear, because as mentioned on previous episodes, I have a weird obsession with British pop and specifically British girl pop. I know the singer Cheryl. She was a solo artist and she was in Girls Aloud before that. She is also a Geordie. So if any of those help you, then you will now be on the same page with Keith for what a Geordie is. So
Well, hold on. I knew it. First of all, let's just be clear. This is the most times you've ever said the word Geordie. Probably more
yeah,
than you
yeah,
ever
yeah.
imagined. What a strange place England is. We should also add Rowan Atkinson, by the way, is Mr. Bean is his most famous character. He also plays the lead character in the popular series Blackadder. So for those of you who enjoy British television,
Oh, okay.
He's Blackadder, which is a delightful
Yeah, I
British,
haven't seen that.
slightly historical British program.
Okay.
If you're a fan of British comedy, Blackadder. That's the message.
Okay.
Um,
Good tip.
and Sting, of course, is
Yeah,
famous
so
for being Sting. So
yeah. Although it's funny how people's accents largely disappear when they're singing. So that is, I don't know how helpful that ultimately is, but yeah.
yeah.
So also it was kind of funny. We talked. I griped a little bit about they call it New York even though the stadium's actually in New Jersey. That's kind of just a peculiarity, and I totally agree with what you're saying. It's the New York metro area, and that's perfectly acceptable as an explanation as to why people still call it New York. I did find it funny. I noticed during this weekend's match in the sideboard ads at the stadium, the Premier League was advertising their summer series, and they mentioned all the places in the United States where they're going to be playing, such as Philadelphia and Orlando and New Jersey. Maybe this is just because they're not locals. Maybe it's because they are from over the pond that they called it New Jersey, which is accurate.
I suspect there's some. There's always been some weirdness. The Giants and the Jets moved out there in the 70s. The Giants, here's your New York history, sports history for the week. The Giants used to play in Yankee Stadium. The Jets used to play in Shea Stadium. The Giants built Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands, which is just a big open space in northern New Jersey, because there was no friggin' way they could build a city in New York. And then a few years after that, the Jets came in as essentially tenants. Then they built the new one, MetLife, which is where you're going to be. It was right next to the original Giant Stadium. Did you ever go to? I've even to either of them, I guess I should ask.
No, the only football stadium I've ever been to is Soldiers Field in Chicago, and it was not for a football match. It was for a Grateful Dead concert or two. So,
well,
yeah.
that's why I was asking. Maybe you had been down to the Meadowlands for a concert as well, because they do that.
No,
But,
right. Now, I've been to Barclays. I've been to Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden for hockey and for Paul McCartney. But yeah, no, never been to the Meadowlands before, so that'll be a first for me.
It's pretty generic. I don't. It's not bad. It's just it should be an interesting. It was interesting. I was talking to some of the guys there. One of them was a United fan who sort of pops in now and again, usually to banter. But he was saying he had been. I mean, he was talking about going to see United in some places, and he had been to some of these preseason games that they had done in other places, and so they actually put on a pretty good show for some of them. So you're probably going to get, in terms of like the production that goes on around the game, the pregame stuff and all of that. In terms of players, as we said, it's preseason. Who knows what you'll see? Maybe a few new signings. We'll talk about that tonight. But yeah, it should be. It's a stadium in the middle of a giant parking lot. So there's plenty of parking. You also get a look at I forget what it's called now. For the longest time, it was called Xanadu. For the longest time, it wasn't even finished. It's now a giant indoor mall. It is.
I go past that on the way to Newark Airport. Yeah.
Yep. American Dream is what it is. It is also probably one of the ugliest buildings I've ever seen.
Yeah, a bit of an eyesore. Yeah.
The indoor ski slope is what really sort of takes it. It really sort of takes it over that and all at least the last time I was there, they had a bunch of color. All the walls were also different colors. I don't know if that's still the case, but. And to be fair, the Meadowlands is, I mean, as someone who's from New York, making fun of New Jersey is second nature. The Meadowlands is not one of the more attractive parts of New Jersey. There are nice parts of New Jersey. The Meadowlands ain't it, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a little bit of news for the week. The first thing is just to point out to people there will be a link in the show notes. We've covered previously Major League Soccer is now exclusively available through Apple TV Plus. And it used to be that there was no trial for it, that they had one weekend that was free when it was the opening weekend. And then that was it. You had to sign up. You could buy a month if you wanted to try it. Well, there is now a 1 month free trial. So there is a link in the show notes. If someone was on the fence about whether or not it was worth it, you can spend a month watching all the matches from MLS. That is American Major League Soccer that you were interested in, if at all. And you can take it from there. Something. Well, let me ask you, Keith. Have you signed up for that? Is that how you're watching MLS?
Yes. Apparently, they have a couple games every week that are free. But yeah, I'll have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as folks know, I am a founding member of New York City FC, which, in spite of their connection to Manchester City, is, in my mind, a totally separate thing. Obviously, I know the business connection and all of that. And in fact, anyone who wants to complain, I understand it better than you do. So you don't want to get into this with me. But yeah, that's how I'll watch them. They have also been struggling lately, actually far more so than Arsenal has. So it's been a rough couple of weeks of soccer. It's been a rough couple of weeks. But yes, I use the Apple broadcast. It's an interesting one because for the longest time, and I think we had talked about this, MLS had all local broadcasts, and I really liked the guys who did New York City games. Joe Tollison was the play-by-play guy. Ian Joy was the color commentator. And when Apple grabbed MLS, of course, they grabbed a bunch of these local broadcasters to turn them into this national broadcast group. neither of them it was part of it. And I listened to they did an interview with a New York City fan podcast, and basically what they both said was it just it didn't really quite work out. Joe Tollison actually has a regular job as the PA announcer for the New York Rangers at the Garden, and does some other things throughout. And Ian Joy is involved in a lot of coverage that CBS does of European competitions. So you may have come across him during some of the Europa League games, or if you start watching or next year when we watch the Champions League. And he and Joy, it's a good name. He's a positive, outgoing guy, Scottish, so a very thick accent, but a lot of fun. The two of them were a lot of fun to listen to. So it's a little different. It's a little bit more like the NFL, where the national broadcast does it, the national networks do everything, and so you get these rotating casts of announcers, and MLS is still kind of working through who all of those are.
Cool. Another thing, it's not news to the world. It's just kind of news to me because this came out in 2020. But if anyone is interested in bringing a little bit of soccer home and building it brick by brick, there is an Old Trafford Lego set. That is the stadium where Manchester United plays. So I can put a link to that in the show notes. I don't have it prepared, but I will add that for you guys if anyone is curious, if you want to grab that before it gets retired, because Lego sets are not sold at retail prices forever. So that was interesting. It reminded me of something in a Ted Lasso season that maybe the current season or maybe a prior season I won't see anything else, because I am very, very spoiler averse, and so I treat others the same way. But that's something that if it were the Emirates, I would consider putting it on my wish list. But I'll wait and see. So if that gets added, I think winning the league is probably their best chance at that. So if not this year, then maybe next. But what a segue into our match against Brighton. So as we record, this was yesterday, May 14th, a home match against Brighton, in which they walloped us 0-3. A couple goals coming in late in the match, but oh, what a heartbreaking game. I just don't know what happened. I don't understand.
Yeah, well, I think we should start with the big news that came out. I don't know if it was officially announced by the club or it's just sort of trickled out, but in pregame, the lineup announcement, Alexander Zinchenko was out of the lineup. He apparently has a thigh injury and is shut down for the rest of the season. And it seemed to be something we kind of suspected, but appears is, I don't know if it's official or just everyone just kind of think that's what all the rumors are. It's going to happen now. But William Saliba has also been shut down for the season. Now, obviously, we've seen not having Saliba for a few weeks, and obviously, we know a little bit about the weaknesses, the difficulties that gives us defensively and offensively. But losing Zinchenko is a bit of a blow. We have Kieran Tierney, who is a serviceable backup, really kind of undersells it. He's a very good player, but he's such a different player than Zinchenko, and there were times I think Zinchenko's absence was noticeable. Tierney's definitely more responsible defensively. Certainly Zinchenko's defense, while never great, has been a bit more of a problem recently, although I'm sure that's partly related to, again, Saliba not being there. But it wasn't a great bit of news to get started, even with the idea that it's Kieran Tierney, it's going to be fine. And I don't know. To me, there were two distinct halves. I was a bit shocked, frankly, watching when they showed the possession stats at halftime, and I think Brighton at like 60-some%. I thought we actually played pretty well in the first half. We weren't as incisive in the final pass. We had a few rough giveaways, but overall, I thought we created a couple of dangerous chances. Odegaard had one of those. We talked about this last time. Those low corner shots. This one just missed, just went wide.
We had a couple of those, yeah.
And there were a couple of instances there, and I thought they had a few cases where Saka had a few times where he was dancing around the defender on his side. A few cases where it looked like we took one extra touch when it really would have been served to take the shot. So overall, I thought we were the better team in the first half. I can't sit here and say it should have been 1-0. I can't, but I thought overall we were playing pretty well, which made the second half largely disappointing. Although some of that, I don't know how much to make of it. Of course, the big change was the early substitution. Speaking of injuries, your guy
Mm-hmm.
Martinelli,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
a that was a
That
rough
was a
one.
painful looking knock. Oh my god! You see the angle that his ankle was bent into, and that really hit home for me. I mean, I'm still suffering from an ankle injury to that same ankle, left ankle, from like almost a year and a half ago now. It's I hope it's not as bad as mine is, and hopefully he gets on it and it doesn't continue to affect him. But yeah,
Yeah, they showed him post game. I saw him on the field in a boot, which is never a
mm,
great sign. Um,
no,
but who knows? They said they were scanning. I thought they said today they were going to scan him, and we'll see what happens there. I mean, frankly, it was kind of interesting. It was almost the first 10-15 minutes turned into a bit of a bloodbath. Odegaard gets a ball kicked into his face,
right?
which
That was like in the first 2 minutes. Yeah,
because it was so early, I think I kind of switched off and was talking to someone next to me or something, and all of a sudden I look up and there's Odegaard lying on the ground. I'm like, oh, that's not good. What
right.
happened? And then of course you see the replay and the ball just
Yeah, from close range. Yeah.
yeah. But he got up. Seemed to be fine. At least that's what they all say. You never really know, I guess.
Yeah.
In that
I
case,
mean, generally, from what I've seen, I mean, unless you have a broken nose or something, it stuns you and it takes a second to recover. But it's a fairly soft ball. It's shocking when it happens. As long as it doesn't cause a concussion, doesn't break your nose. I don't know how much real damage it would ever cause. I mean, have you seen that be a real injury?
you're kicked to the head. They get the ball kicked to your head. The concussion is the real concern. I
Right.
mean, a broken nose is possible, but that has to hit you really square for that. Even just like the side of the
Mm-hmm.
head. Of course, you got something pounding your head. And we say the ball's soft. Especially the professional those things are pumped up pretty good. They're
They
pretty.
are.
They've definitely
Right.
got.
It depends on
They
what you're
don't.
comparing it to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a lot of get. It's not like getting hit by like say a baseball or a hockey puck, which of course is going to be much more compact. But still, it's got some
Mm-hmm.
heft to it, especially given the velocity some of those guys
Right.
can really crank it. But yeah, then following that, Mitoma got hip checked in the head by
By
Martinelli.
Martinelli. Right.
Um, I don't know. What did you think? What did you? I have thoughts about that. What did you think seeing that?
It was a questionable decision on his part, and it was a further questionable decision not to have it yellow carded by the ref. Which, yeah, he didn't. When did he issued his first yellow card? Like late into the second half, or I guess midway through the second half. It looked like it took him a long time to start pulling them out. Um, but yeah, it was a rough match. I mean, it's the kind of thing we've talked about before. Once someone is in the air to head the ball, like it's basically a no-no. You don't leap up after to try and do anything with them. Basically, I mean, you go after the ball, I guess, but it didn't even seem like he was. I don't know what he was doing.
I mean, he's going up for the ball. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, he was extremely lucky not to get a yellow at least. I think the thing that saves him as I watch it, if you watch him, and of course this is all slow motion replays, so you can't, who knows what's seeing this live, but it looks to me like he's tracking the ball with his eyes the whole time. Like sometimes you'll see guys go up and do that, and you can see them clearly look at the guy and they know the guy's there. To me, it looked like Martinelli was tracking the ball the whole time when he goes up, which of course creates the contact. Now,
yeah,
again, having said that, obviously it becomes a very dangerous play, and he was very fortunate not to receive a yellow, and I think he was saved by the fact that we were, 5 minutes into the game, less than 10 minutes into the
right.
game. I mean, you will rarely see a red given that situation, but in a certain scenario, you could potentially see that, and I have to say, I think that played a role in what happened to him a few minutes later. Moises Caicedo.
Retribution. Yeah.
I think Caicedo knows exactly who he's going in on there, and I don't mean that in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that Caicedo's a dirty player. I thought he had a very good game. You can see why Arsenal wanted him in January. You can see why lots of teams want him. Why Arsenal may still want him. Hint, hint. But that's he knew what he. I think he knew who he was going into. not that he intended to injure him, but it is certainly a dangerous challenge. And I think there's an argument. We've talked about the referees losing control. Frankly, he probably should have, in the sense of game control, you could easily argue he should have given that yellow to Martinelli. Punishment has been given out, and maybe Caicedo doesn't feel the need to make that challenge, which frankly was also deserving of a yellow. But so I was listening to the Arscast this morning, as I said, if Moises Caicedo can continue this record of not being allowed to get yellows at the Emirates, he would in fact be an excellent signing for us. But yeah, there was a lot of little craziness there in the early going in it, but it led to the arrival of Leandro Trossard, who had I don't remember, was it in the first half he hit the crossbar?
Looking, I don't have a note about it. I don't know.
He had another one because I think he had one. Maybe it was he had one. Maybe it was Southampton, a goal that would have won the game where he cracked the crossbar. I think, and he had another one here that definitely they hit the bar. It's like, we had just gotten that early goal, that early chance, but instead it was scoreless at the half.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I think maybe it was in the 31st minute. I think that may have been him. Yeah, I didn't note the player, but yeah, glances off.
Okay, they got off the crossbar. I'm pretty sure that was a Trossard chance. It was. We had a couple of misses. Really. The margins are so fine. We've talked about this, right? Goals change games, and we were so close to a couple of them that you could have really made for a different game, except for the part where, as we sort of said, I thought we were decent in the first half. I know we'll hit the second half in a little bit, but we were not excellent at all. We were not better than anything in the second half, I think is absolutely the best way to say it. Anything else you noticed in that first half?
No, I mean, I agree with you. It was very physical. I think that was the overall comment, was just, wow, were we knocking each other around, like both sides just really going at it with each other. I remember seeing the stat early into the second half, which was mostly a reflection of the first, that, we had like 10 shots or something compared to like their 1 or 2. We had a lot of attempts, and especially once we got into stoppage time, and it seems to be a pattern for us. We're like, once we're in stoppage time, once the feet's to our fire, or once the fire's to our feet, then we really go for it and just try hammering it in. And it's worked out in the past. We've gotten goals in that situation. We just had near misses this time. Near miss and less near miss from Odegaard. But yeah, it was good. And I think at the same time, they did also have some near misses. They had some blown chances too. I mean, I feel like as far as credible opportunities, we were kind of even. We shot it a lot more, I think, as far as shots that could have gone in. I think it was roughly even, maybe slight edge to us. But then the second half happened.
Shots are a weird thing because obviously some of them, sail off into the distance. I mean, they had a close-in chance that he ends up skying, that Brighton did early in the match. But I think, they had a couple of potentially dangerous chances. But again, a shot that comes in and forces Ramsdale into a save is not statistically, it's a big difference, but sometimes isn't a huge difference from, say, that Odegaard shot that drags just wide. That's a shot, but it's not a shot on goal. So statistically, it's managed a little bit differently. But I think I think you're right. They had a few dangerous chances. I think that both teams looked a little bit ragged at trying to find that final pass. Like both of them were looking a little bit for that extra, that one more touch, one more pass, and a couple times that's where their attacks fell apart and allowed the other team to turn it and go the other way.
Mm-hmm. So recently I had a life-changing experience. I won't say there was necessarily a major change, but it was a slight change. I tried a new flavor of Liquid IV. It was the yuzu pineapple. It was good. It was interesting. It was something new. I'd been trying only the strawberry lemonade before, and trying a new flavor. I liked it. You may be asking yourself, what is Liquid IV? Tell me more. And if that is the case, I can tell you. Liquid IV is the category-winning hydration brand fueling your well-being. And their hydration multiplier is the one product you're missing in your daily routine. In just one stick, you get 5 essential vitamins and 2 times faster hydration than water alone. Use it first thing in the morning before a workout, or like I do after coaching little kids running around a baseball or soccer field. And you can hydrate yourself 2 times faster than with water alone, and with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. So like I said, I tried the yuzu pineapple, which was really good. I don't know what a yuzu pineapple is, but the flavor was yummy. I've got another couple that I'll be trying in the coming days and weeks. And as mentioned, 1 stick of liquid IV and 16 ounces of water. That's a little bit less than the water bottles that I buy from the store. That hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone. It comes in 12 delicious, refreshing flavors to keep your hydration routine exciting. Because if it's not exciting, you're not going to stick to it. It contains 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C, and has 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. It is made with premium ingredients that are non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy, and Liquid IV believes that equitable access to clean and abundant water is the foundation of a healthier world. Liquid IV partners with leading organizations for innovative solutions to help communities protect both their water and their futures. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in 50-plus countries around the world. So you're probably asking yourself, what can I do? I want this stuff. Well, I'm seeing it pop up in stores all over the place now. It's really booming. But if you want to get 20% off, you can use code Gooner at checkout. That's GOONER. There is no U in Gooner. You go to liquidiv.com, use code Gooner, and they'll get you 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code Gooner at liquidiv.com. Ready to shop Better Hydration? Use the special link in the show notes and enter code Gooner at checkout. So the second half.
Well, before we do that, actually, I want to say, obviously, as you were busy working your way through the ad read, which is excellently done, by the way.
Thank you.
I did look up what yuzu pineapple. It is not a type of pineapple. Yuzu is actually apparently an East Asian citrus fruit. So it is actually a mixture of flavors, a yuzu and a pineapple.
Yuzu/pineapple. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Because this is a show about education.
Real-time follow-up. No, thank you, Keith.
Yeah. I was curious, what is a yuzu pineapple? And like you, what I discovered is there is no such thing. It is 2 entirely different fruits merged together, and it sounds like it's quite delicious, too.
It is, yeah. It adds a little something to it, yeah. I could have easily ended up going to bed not knowing what a yuzu was, so thank you.
And I do enjoy the taste of pineapple, so I'll have to put that on my to-drink list.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, second half.
So, well, before we talk about the second half, let me just mention something that's funny that didn't really come into play till near the second half. So, again, I'm experimenting with different ways of watching all these things. This time, I was heading out shortly after the match began. I knew I wasn't going to be able to watch it in real time. But I figured, okay, well, what if we've talked about before how sometimes people want to start the replay, sort of semi-replay while the match is going on. They want to start it from the beginning. You were talking about a couple episodes ago about that being a reason, like not to show the scores in the ESPN Plus app, for instance, right? Because someone might want to watch a game that's currently going on from the beginning and don't want to be spoiled, for the last half hour or whatever, right? So I figure, okay, well, knowing that I'm going to watch it later, what if I go into the NBC Sports app and I start it now while it's still in progress? Then I don't need to worry about waiting through their ads showing you, oh, watch this video with the highlights telling you the score, right? I can just go straight into the app and let it get started. Well, so I did that, and they don't have that feature. If you're an NBC Sports in the US, when you go to play an in-progress match, it jumps you in right where the match is going on. So I watched the replay later knowing that it was scoreless 41 minutes in. So I spent most of the first half knowing whatever it looked like was going to happen, the ball was not going in or not going to be called a valid goal one way or another. So it got a little more exciting for me to the end of the first half, and then the second half happened. So yeah, in the 51st minute, Brighton opened the scoring. They got a lead on us that was never seriously contested. We didn't have any real chances until we'd already been behind by 0-2, I think. But yeah, so
yeah, that was an ugly one. So there was a little bit of contact. I mean, Julio Enciso is not a very big player, and it's very annoying
No.
that he gets a header at point blank range like that. He is free in part because Jakub Kivior is actually down. He definitely does get stepped on right before, and he's down in a bit of pain. I don't know. People are sitting here talking it was a foul and a missed foul. I don't know. That's a hard. If that had gone the other, again, one of those, if it had gone the other way, that would be, I think it looked to me almost inadvertent in terms of the contact and the kind of contact that goes on constantly in the box.
Mm-hmm.
So it ends up just being a really kind of unfortunate situation. But
Well,
yeah,
and there was another corner kick later on where the ref actually made us redo it, I think, or us or them. I forget whose corner it was, but whoever was kicking needed to do it again because of Xhaka and was it Dunk, I
oh
think.
yeah, it's a
Like
dunk.
two of them were like knocking each other to the ground, and the ref blew the whistle after the kick and just made them do it over. So yeah, they're
Yeah, they
very
were
physical
because
game.
because
Yeah.
he does blow that play dead. He actually does blow the play dead before the kick comes in, or in the NHL they use the phrase "the intent to blow." So basically, it's not so much when the whistle goes, and if the referee intent. I know, everyone giggles.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's not even. I love hockey. The people who cover it sometimes just don't. There are a few other of these phrases that they just like. Do you not hear yourself? How did that? Anyway, but basically the idea is so the referee can sort of sit there and say, okay, I didn't blow the whistle here, and so the puck was live. But I intended to, and so therefore I'm retroactively calling the play dead. The idea you play to the
Mhm.
whistle. I don't know quite what it was. I mean, sometimes those things happen, obviously, in just split seconds, and he's already making the call when. Maybe Saka, I think, was running up to take the kick, and so he says, "Nope, nope, nope. I blew the play dead. You get to redo it." Because it was Xhaka, and I think it was Dunk as well, who were just as happens on corners, grabby grabby, and down. I think in the case they both went down, which is what really alerted the referee to say no, knock it off.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and yeah, so that'll happen now
Yeah.
and again.
So.
But yeah, it's frustrating, it's annoying, but I think that yeah, I think and Brighton had been playing a little bit better in the second half. I felt the game had already been tilted a little bit towards our end, and the hope was all right. I mean, they scored, but it was it was before the hour. Yeah, 51st minute. So we still had over 30
Mhm.
minutes, 40 minutes essentially with what ended up being stoppage time. We had
Mhm.
time to get it, and it just, I mean, it really just felt like whatever it was that had been working for us in the first half and whatever had been working for us in some of the previous matches throughout most of the season, whatever it was, we didn't have it.
Yeah.
It was pretty dire for a lot of the second half. It's unfortunate because obviously we've talked about being in the title race and hanging on and what would we need for this. I woke up, I slept in a little bit on Sunday, so I woke up and was thinking to myself, "Oh, let me check the score of the City game just to see how they're doing. Maybe I want to flip this on." And I looked at the score; it was halftime, and it was 2-0 City. I was like, "Nope, nope, Everton is not coming back from that." And so, the idea was we need to come in, we need to put pressure on them. Like we talked about last week with Chelsea and Newcastle, like put pressure on them, make them have to win those games. And honestly, we looked tired. We just looked, I think, to a certain extent, physically and mentally exhausted. And Brighton's good. I mean, let's be, let's give credit where credit is due. Brighton is a good team. They're currently in sixth. They are ahead of Tottenham. Which, speaking of things that make all of that make silver linings in all of this, Brighton's win. Brighton closes the season. They're like of their final 5 games they include Arsenal, City, and Newcastle. Somehow got lined up in three of their last
Right.
4 or 5 games, which is pretty brutal. But there they are. They are ahead of Tottenham, and they have 2 games in hand. They've actually still got 4 games left.
Hmm.
Um, and so they are already a point ahead of Tottenham in sixth. So they are, is a very good chance they're going to be in Europe next year. So the fact that they beat us again, silver lining is that they're that much closer to knocking Tottenham out of Europe, which is very funny. We'll see what old friend Unai Emery and Aston Villa can do as in the spot below them. But yeah, I mean, they're plus 21 on goal difference, which is better than Manchester United. They're a good team. Brighton is, and it's going to be very weird when they're going to have a couple of players that are going to get sold. They've got some really good guys, on the field. A couple of them are definitely going to get sold this summer. We talked about Caicedo, who's a guy we're interested in. Alexis McAllister, who played for Argentina in the World Cup. He's a nice player. He's been connected to, I think, Liverpool and a few other places. Pervis Estupinian, which is an unfortunate name. Speaking of things we're going to giggle about. But again, he and Caicedo are both played for Ecuador in the world. Both played in the World Cup. And just confirm Estupinian is Ecuador. Yeah, they're both Ecuadorians. They both played in the World Cup. And Lewis Dunk, I forget, he's been around England for a while. And then the guy they brought off the bench, Danny Welbeck, is a former Arsenal man. Dunk's been at Brighton the whole time. Never mind. Danny Welbeck, former Arsenal man. So that's a lot of there's talent on that roster. Although, as they point out, their manager De Zerbi made a comment. I don't know if it was in the post game or at some point after the talk of the game. Basically said he thinks Caicedo and McAllister are going to be sold. There's certainly rumors, a suggestion that Caicedo, because Brighton was so insistent on not selling him, he was making comments about demanding a transfer. Hey, Arsenal wants me. I want to go to Arsenal. And supposedly they had some meeting that, cleared the air. There is speculation that the phase of the meeting was, we will sell you in the summer, but right now we need you to get to Europe. And there's a very good chance they're going to, and they're good. They look good. They are an interesting team to watch. They're a little different. They're not like the kind of team that you would normally a team that you would normally see sort of playing above their station, so to speak. Brighton's never been to Europe. Brighton's never been this high in the standings. But they're not doing it in kind of that bunker and counter kind of thing that you would expect to. We saw Everton. We talked about how some of these other teams, especially towards the bottom of the table, how they're trying to play us. Brighton did not do that. That's not who they are. That's not how they play. So they're a heck of a success story. They lost their coach partway through the season. Graham Potter was their manager, and then he went to Chelsea. And De Zerbi took over, and they've been even better. So yeah, they're there's a lot, there's a lot to be said for where they are. They're a very good team. It was a game. I know we felt good coming out of Newcastle, but this was another game we were looking at and saying could have been a pitfall, could have been trouble, and it turns out it was. Which I saw somewhere. I think they've beaten us 3 out of the last 4 times at the Emirates, including that League Cup game, which only allegedly happened because it wasn't on television anywhere. But that was Brighton at the Emirates, and they beat us again. League Cup, not the full roster, but wins are wins, and they get wins at the Emirates, which is annoying.
So just a couple questions about the match. One thing that I noticed, so we've talked before about jersey selection and minimizing clashing between different colors. What I noticed watching this is Steele. He was the keeper for Brighton. He had something weird going on with his hair. He had like a little like a bird landed on his head. There was like a little bit sticking up in the back. That was kind of weird. But
cowlick there.
But his jersey was black with like dark gray accents on it. From a distance would have been a dead ringer for the ref, which is kind of weird because we've talked before about the refs not clashing, picking their colors to be different from the teams on the field. Apparently, whatever policy sets the refs' jerseys, they don't take the keepers into account or something.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that in a couple other instances where the referee's kit and the keeper's kits don't clash. I suspect, I don't actually know. My suspicion though is it stems from the fact that the referee and the keeper are never going to be in the same place on the field. Like the whole point of to change jersey, of course, is that players aren't going to confuse the ref for their teammate. But that's not going to happen because the referee rarely will go into the box. He is almost never going to find himself in a position where he could even conceivably clash with whatever the whatever the keeper is wearing. So I suspect there's somewhere in the rules it's not an issue. It's the outfield players that have to be distinct. Or at least that's who they're judging that against.
Yeah. There's something else that I found amusing. Like I've noticed just watching the matches and during the documentary and stuff, Arsenal, although not uniformly every other club, but a lot of the clubs, the players' name and or number and like the staff's initials and stuff will be on training jackets and pants, and like obviously on their jersey, it's on their shirts and their shorts. Their numbers and names are over everything. In the 22nd minute, Jorginho went down. It was funny. The shot was like a close-up shot of him, and you could see it beneath the waistband of his Arsenal shorts. You could see his number on his underwear, like showing through the white fabric of the shorts. It's just kind of funny. Like even their underwear, they need labeled to keep it separate because I guess it's team underwear.
A lot of some of the stuff's custom made. It's especially because they get the contract, for the shirts. Everyone talks about who has the shirt contract. This is the old Puma one from a few years ago.
It's not a Puma,
but yeah. But it's. I mean, they outfit them with everything. They get the shirt and the shorts, the socks, the training gear. I mean, they sell a whole bunch of it. But yeah, there's other things too. They can do. A lot of players will have an individualized shoe deal where they will get, they get cleats sent from them from the big brand that they've signed a contract with. But as Adidas is our supplier, I think Adidas also sends the team a bunch of a bunch of shoes every year, and some players. Generally younger ones or guys, you wouldn't have heard of who aren't big enough names to have a contract. There are shoes available for them. So the club always has a new stuff for them. The perks of being a professional.
Well, it's funny along those lines. I remember watching a match some months ago. It was one that I was watching live with my dad, like on a call, or it may have been in person. I don't remember. But he was like, why is Mikel Arteta wearing the same jacket as the manager from the other team? That's weird. And I was like, well, they're not on screen right now, and I haven't been paying attention, but I bet you if you look at the other team, they're probably another Adidas team. And sure enough, they were. And yeah, that was probably just they both wanted to wear black and they wanted a hood. Like there are only so many jackets that Adidas is going to make to the specs that a manager would want to be wearing on the field on a cold, rainy England day. And so that can happen too, or it looks like they're dressing the same.
Yeah, well, so it's interesting. Like in a lot of sports, especially American sports, there seems to be sort of a standard way coaches dress. So like baseball, of course, they wear the uniform, which is always kind of fun. A lot of indoor sports like hockey or basketball, you see guys in suits. Although especially some of them have, especially starting in COVID and sort of since then, they've really kind of gotten away from that a lot. And so that you see a lot more just like polos and sort of much more a bit more of a relaxed look. Then you get to the NFL where like they get branded gear from the league, and the league basically tells like a uniform, you're wearing this week. So if you watch week to week in the NFL, all the coaches will be wearing roughly the same thing, just slightly changed with logos and stuff. And that's basically because they're told to do that. But yeah, then you get to soccer and you have some managers are wearing tracksuits. Some of them are wearing a perfectly tailored Italian suit. It really is kind of fascinating. Some of them show up in just like they just wear the jacket. Arsene Wenger had this awkward incident for years. He'd have these big puffy jackets they would wear, and he constantly seemed to have trouble with the zipper, like trying to zip up the whole coat. To the point when I believe they switched to I'm trying to remember when it was either when they switched to Adidas or switched to Puma when he was there. I don't remember if they switched to Adidas when if that was after he had left. But in the promo video for the first set of gear, they actually included a short clip of Wenger zipping up the jacket and like smiling into the camera, because this had been a thing that was difficult at some point. the way the internet meme culture has sort of taken over everything. But yeah, so
That's
anyway, to
funny.
bring this full circle, I'm sure it was specially branded underwear. That seems totally
Yeah,
plausible to me.
yeah. I'm sure it was. That was a logical conclusion. It's just kind of funny, like when you notice these things. Or like, one of the players on Brighton had lifted up their shirt, and we've talked about those analytics tracking bras that they wear. And I noticed that when he lifted up his shirt, the bra thing said American Express on it. That's their sponsor. That's on the front of their shirts, and apparently on the front of under their shirts too. So, yeah, they can't leave home without it.
Yeah, but say it's good. I was going to drop that in there. Good, well done, well done.
But one other thing that I wanted to ask about, get your take on. So in the 84th minute, and I'll give you a minute to pull up the replay if you don't remember this, but following a corner kick, Gabriel was being held back pretty aggressively, like someone's grabbing his shirt. And the commentators have pointed out at the time, and I was inclined to agree that could have easily ended up being a penalty. It was late enough that maybe it would have mattered. I mean, like ultimately, if we had gotten a penalty at that point, I think it was before the second goal, so it would have brought us even. Could have had an effect on the game. Do you think that should have been a penalty?
I am trying to find the highlight to see if I can find the actual play. I think I know which one you're referring to. To me, that felt like one of those. To me, it felt like if it's the play I'm thinking of. To me, it felt a bit like Gabriel went down a little easy,
Mm.
and that sometimes plays a role. In those calls, the referee sort of judges that there's less contact. He makes a judgment that the player went down on purpose. So that was kind of I couldn't find it. That's how I saw that one. Like if it's the one I'm thinking of, I mean, of course
Yeah.
you want it at that stage. And I think was it 2-0 at that point, or
I
was
think
that
that was
still when it was
before the
1-0?
second goal. I'm pretty sure that
Okay.
that was when it was still 1-0.
I mean, of course you want that penalty, you want that opportunity.
I think to me, what flagged it as something that should have been a penalty is like watching it in the replay. I didn't see it happen at all when it first happened, but watching it in the replay, or yeah, in the replay, I saw it looked like if he hadn't been held back, he might have been in a position to head in that corner kick. It looked like if he had not been artificially held back by the other player like that he could have maybe gotten in and gotten us the goal anyways, which is to me why it looked like I guess it would have deserved a penalty. But if I'm remembering and understanding correctly, if the field ref doesn't call it, then no one's looking at the replay to judge whether that should be a penalty, right?
No, the VAR is also checking, and they can
They
easily
are,
call
okay.
in. Yeah, so we've had. I think there was. I'm trying to remember who it was against. There was one earlier. We had a goal earlier in the season. We had a goal called back. We scored the goal, and then it was on the replay that I think it was Ben White held someone. I think it was
Right.
the keeper's
But
hand, maybe.
but
Yeah.
Right, but that was because a goal was scored. And yeah, all the goals get reviewed by VAR, but there was no goal
Oh
here.
no,
And
VAR is always
because there was no call, yeah.
no, but VAR is always watching and can call in and can basically call down to the referee, hey, I think you missed something. You might want to take a look at this. So that's partly there. They'll see I'm putting my finger to the ear here,
Okay.
the earpiece. That's so they can actually look and say, because the idea is part of the reason for VAR is the referee's view might be obstructed. The referee looks and says, I didn't see I didn't see anything because there was
Mm-hmm.
another guy in the way or it was at a bad angle for it. And VAR can sort of come down and say, no, there was a foul. You need to come take a look at this. Typically, if
Okay.
VAR calls them over, the VAR and there is a sense that there is a deference, by the way, to the referee. So there it could be a case VAR looked and was like, it's close. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the phrase, the
Okay.
operative phrase is always clear and obvious error. So if they
Mm-hmm.
look at that and say, no, he was fouled, you need at that point, if the referee's been called over for VAR, VAR is telling him it's a foul. You need to call that. In that case, VAR will also generally defer to the official, and that to me it was close close enough where they could easily have sort of said it's not clear and obvious that he was definitely fouled. And therefore, therefore they can't. Therefore, they're not going to call in. They might be talking to him, saying, "I don't know about this. What do you think?" Who knows? The ref looked and said, "No, I saw it. I'm not calling that." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's, as I understand it, there is some communication that happens there as well. But all very quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I thought, I guess I was thinking of something that happened a match or two ago where there was something where we had said that because it wasn't called at the time that there was no VAR check on it that would have revealed something that we saw when we were watching the replay at home. I don't remember what that was at this time. So,
well, again, that's the VAR. It could just be terminology we're dealing with here. It could be the VAR check referring to when the referee goes over. Somebody's watching it. If there's a problem, they will call in. Now, what probably is again that notion of there's deference to the call made on the field. The VAR shouldn't be calling the referee unless they say, "I think you got this wrong." But they are watching it. So because the idea is, if indeed there was a foul that was missed, they could go down to him and say, "Hey, you missed this call. You need to take a look at this." So I bet somebody looked at it. But I obviously the decision was not to give anything. That there was no decision. That the decision was no. It's not a foul, not a penalty.
Right. All right. Well, let me ask you. I'll let you come up with whatever you can first. Do you have a player from this third of a match?
Yeah, this was tough. I was thinking about this today before we were coming on. I was thinking, I know you're going to ask me this, and I mean, I know we're thinking of Arsenal players. I think Caicedo deserves a lot from Brighton's perspective. Especially because we want to keep saying nice things about Caicedo because you want to come to Arsenal. But as far as Arsenal players, I thought Odegaard was decent in the first half. I thought he kind of disappeared in the second half. I thought Tierney was fine, but he wasn't Zinchenko, and this was a game, I think, that cried out for a little bit more of Zinchenko's creativity. I thought Saka did well in the first half. I thought he was a little more anonymous in the second half. I did not think Trossard, other than hitting the bar, I thought had a bit of a stinker. Jesus was everywhere. I'm just rattling every name of every player on the field at this point. I mean, Ramsdale had a pretty awful giveaway to lead to the second goal. I guess if I had to pick an Arsenal player for the game, I don't know, maybe Jorginho. Maybe we could say it feels like we're picking not so much a good player, but the best player, but the least bad one. The least
bad.
Yeah. I think I give a case for Jorginho or a Saka maybe, but by the second half, Saka looked much more anonymous. He looked he's looked a little. His game has slipped in the last few weeks. I think for a lot of them, it's tired. And you saw Arteta. If Arteta has a weakness at substitutions, I have to say I didn't quite understand what he was doing with a lot of the substitutions, swapping out the entire midfield like he did. Odegaard and Jorginho coming out for Smith Rowe and Partey was a curious one, and it wasn't helped. It didn't help that. It didn't help that neither of them was all that impressive.
Right.
Like, I think, Smith Rowe is coming off an injury. He hasn't played much. That's a tough place to be in. I thought Thomas Partey was. You can see why he hasn't been playing. He has not been good. We've talked about him maybe being injured. I don't know. It could be he's also tired. He picked up a deserved yellow. That was a pretty bad foul. That's a frustration foul.
I wanted to ask you about that. Somehow I didn't see at all. I saw on the screen that he had gotten a yellow. I didn't see the original action or a replay of it. I totally missed that. What happened there?
I saw it as a tackle. I don't recall I can't picture it in my mind, but as it was happening, it's one of those, the card came out and everyone just said, yeah, that was a bad foul. So I think that was, I'm not picturing it in my head the way I would, I have something in my mind for the Gabriel non-call, but to me, that was, he's clearly frustrated. He gets pushed off the ball at one point by Danny Welbeck, and then tries to claim a foul. And Danny Welbeck's certainly not a weakling, but Thomas Partey shouldn't be getting shoved off the ball by Welbeck. That was just poor on his part. Yeah. I don't want to pick on the guy. He was very important to us. But as the conversation sort of shifted to the summer and players, not just in terms of buying players, Caicedo, Declan Rice, but also in terms of possibly selling players. Kieran Tierney is a name that a lot of people expect might be a guy on the way out.
Hmm.
Frankly, both Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey might be, which, I mean, Xhaka is one of those. It's hard because it feels like we've been trying to sell him every summer. The fan base, I should say, has been trying to sell him every summer for 5 years, and he's still here. Partey's an interesting one because, I mean, just imagine, we talked about how important he was to us for so much of the season, and in terms of what has caused our performances to slip, part of it is just the sheer relentless pace you have to keep up with City. Like, we talked about them as kind of the monster lurking in the distance. And let me ask, do you see what we were talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll circle back to that too, because I do want some details about like what exactly the rest of the season looks like for us. But yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. So it'll be an interesting thing, and that's going to be kind of where I think we're going to go. I'd be very curious at this point. So I think it's a good transition actually to get into the rest of the season, unless you have anything else to say about the Brighton game, because I don't
Yeah,
actually.
let me just say, so I was pressing myself to think of a player of the match, and I think what we didn't talk about, because it faded from memory pretty quickly in light of how the rest of the match went, we started off super offensive, like super like on them, like from the time the kickoff started. We pinned them down from the kickoff into their own side, and a lot of that was Jesus. Like, Jesus was really in their faces, just really trying to win the ball, and I felt like he had a really major role in the first half in keeping that pressure on that we had in that first half, and he wasn't able to sustain it, but that made an impression on me enough that I would call Jesus the player of the match.
Hmm.
But
I don't think that's a
yeah.
bad one. I thought he's to me, Jesus. I thought Jesus was fine. I think this is one of those games though where he had a couple of chances or a couple of opportunities, and again, is this sort of how are we judging these players? Not just on did they play well, but like, did they fulfill the roles they wanted to fill? And he's a goal scorer, and in a game that
Mhm.
really cried out for a finish, we just didn't get one.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, let's bury this and move on. So what does the rest of the season look like? I know the commentators were talking about this next match, because we only have two left. I don't remember how many City has at this point, because I think they may have had two or possibly three. So they were saying that by the end of this weekend that City could have clinched it, basically, where regardless of what we do, we couldn't get enough points to surpass them. Is that the case?
Right. So, City, we play on Saturday. City plays their next game. They'll play in the Champions League on Wednesday. Let me check that. I'm looking at that. Yeah, they'll play the Champions League on Wednesday against Real Madrid. They're 1-1 after their first leg. They are so they have 3 games left in the league, but they're going to play. They are home against Chelsea. I was trying to find it. Home against Chelsea on Sunday. We play on Saturday. If we lose, that will give them the title. If we draw, they need a draw or a win against Chelsea to win the title. And if we win, a win for them will win the title, clinch the title. So if they beat Chelsea on Sunday, they're champions.
Right.
And just to give you a sense of this, in terms of the relentlessness of City, so City lost to Tottenham on February 5th, which is kind of crazy, but for some reason, Tottenham, especially in Tottenham, always gets one over on them. So they beat City on February 5th. Since then, this is their list of results in order: win, win, draw, draw, win, 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 draw, win, 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 draw, win.
Oh man.
That is that's insane.
Well, that's what we looked like at the beginning of the season for the first half or more of the season. That's what we looked like, you
We
know.
had stretches like that, and but to do that at this stage of the season, and you can see
Mm-hmm.
for us, like we're getting, we talked about how the tiredness of the players and the depth of the roster. To do that at this stage of the season, that kind of relentless churn, especially given the quality of some of their opposition. Of course, they've played everybody in the league. They've been going through the FA Cup. They're in the FA Cup final. They've been going through the Champions League knockout stages. They played, RB Leipzig, who's a good German team. They played Bayern Munich, who is the best German team. Well, Bayern's one of the best teams in the world. And they're playing Real Madrid, who's the co-favorite with them for the Champions League. And they drew 1-1 in Madrid. They get to play the second leg is in Manchester. So it's not just that they're winning these games, they're doing so. I mean, you threw in our first half of the season. Sure, we ran through a bunch of the league. We also
But
played in
not
the
that.
Europa League, which is a very different. That was a different kind of thing. And again, early on in the season, later in the season. I mean, right now, we're going to finish. If we win the next two, I need to find the table real quick. If we win the next two, we would finish with. Hold on, just trying to pull everything up. If we win the next two, we would finish with 87 points. 87 points is one of the. We were the highest totals in the club's history. It's an astounding record. We haven't broken 80 points since 2008.
Mm-hmm.
The Invincibles had 90.
Yeah.
And that team didn't lose a single game, and they had 90 points. And here we are. We have a chance to sit at 87 and finish somewhat comfortably in second. City has just been, and they've done this the last few years, where the last couple of years their results that 93, 86, 81, 98, 100. Those are their point totals, and the only time they didn't win the title in the last few years was Liverpool in 2020. Liverpool had 99. I mean, sort of the level it takes to compete with them and where they are is, I mean, it is a credit to us and how good we were that we've been at that level for most of the season.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, the sort of the relentlessness of dealing with Manchester City, having to play with a club who can do those kinds of things. But that's the way it is. We can talk about, the money they have and how it's been spent and all the things they can do that so many other teams can't. But, that's if you want to win the league, that's what it takes. And, to a certain extent, we've talked about being on the beach. We're kind of on the beach. I'm not saying we actually are. I don't know where they are mentally. I suspect we're going to have a good show against Newcastle. It'd be nice to bounce back, and Newcastle's very much in the
Not
relegation
Newcastle.
zone. Yeah,
Not Newcastle.
not Newcastle. I'm sorry, Nottingham Forest. Ends
Right.
ends mixed up there. Nottingham Forest
Nottingham, Newcastle.
Nottingham is not in the bottom three. They are 3 points clear of relegation, so they're going to need they're going to really want a result. But yeah, we're pretty much locked into second at this point. Newcastle can't catch us. We are almost certainly not going to catch City, and so not Forest could be a tough one, honestly, this weekend. And then we close the season at Wolves, who is definitely not getting relegated, but is also not anywhere close to Europe. Wolves is a team that's pretty much done and also struggles mightily to score goals. Wolves has 30 goals on the season. They're struggling. So, looking ahead, I think it'll be very curious to see how Arteta thinks about these last couple games. I hope we see more of Smith Rowe in particular. He's a guy we haven't seen a lot. I hope we see a little bit more. It wouldn't be so bad to see a little bit more of Reece Nelson, Eddie Nketiah, guys who would normally be getting a run out. In a space of injuries, you might see a little bit more planned substitutions. I don't know. I know Arteta is a competitive guy. He's going to want to push them as hard as he can. But I'll be kind of curious to see how we approach these final two games, kind of knowing it's not officially over, but even I think Odegaard made a comment in the post game where he basically said, "Yeah, we know it's over." Or yeah, let's see if I can find it really quickly. What he said, probably not. Everything's really really slow. Yeah, our Odegaard says no hope. There's no hope for the title. Which is
pragmatic.
Or excuse me, I should say that it feels like there is no hope now, which is
yeah.
a little bit different, but also it's not wrong.
Yeah.
But as they say, don't be sad that it's over. Be glad that it happened. But we can be more. We can talk about more about that in the melancholy when we get to the season review in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that match is going to be on Saturday with Nottingham Forest, and I saw that is going to be on Peacock Premium. So anyone who's subscribing there can watch it live or see the replay same day, not having to wait 24 hours like the last 2 or 3 matches have been for us. So, well, thanks for joining us at Gooner U. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and some other places, and we appreciate you subscribing to our show and sharing it with friends. If you want to listen the night we record, you can become a Gooner U superfan to download a raw, unedited recording right away, as well as occasional bonus content. There's a link in the show notes to join. And thanks again to our sponsor, Liquid IV. You can find them at liquidiv.com and enter code Gooner to save 20% at checkout. That is Gooner. There are no U's in Gooner. You can follow our show on Twitter at GoonerUShow for updates and to ask questions. Again, my name is Dove, and you can find me on Twitter at Dove Frankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
Come on, you Gunners.